Welcome to the tutorial on starting a podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia. I'm the president of KIPS and Time to Train Fitness. This tutorial is an update. A few years back, I made a similar video for this channel on basically the steps that I went through to create a podcast for KIPS, the one that I record for on a monthly basis. But as of lately, and why am I doing this update here? Of lately, things have improved. Efficiency, cost, all these different items. And I think that starting a podcast can be a great way to build your audience, create content, all things that we're looking to do on a regular basis. Before we get to the steps, the how-to, and the meat and potatoes of this tutorial, why do I think podcasting is great? Number one, and big item here, is public speaking. If you're able to work on your public speaking in the form of a podcast, I think it's a great benefit. If you're a health coach, a strength coach, personal trainer, group exercise instructor, whatever that might be, you're in front of an audience. You are standing up there, you're talking, and working on those skills only benefits you. Face-to-face interactions, communicating with somebody, all things that can be benefited from the podcast. And you might be thinking, oh, Tyler, with a podcast, I'm just recording to a microphone. Try it. It's working on your communication. You're communicating a topic through a podcast to a computer. And hopefully when your audience listens back on it, they understand it and they get something from it. And if you think about it, and I always say that podcasting is one of the hardest things, and why I always think that people that can just talk to a microphone naturally, they're super talented. Try to do it. It takes practice. It takes learning. It takes time to work through each progression. Number two, though, with why I think podcasting is great, is that you're able to share your knowledge to your audience. If you are creating a podcast and then you are emailing it through an email newsletter, or you're promoting on social media, or you're putting it out on YouTube, you're able to show your knowledge in a certain area. Think about it. If all you are doing is 30-minute workouts, 45-minute workouts, and that in that workout, you're cueing, you're demonstrating, and of course you're motivating, how can you share about nutrition tips, wellness tips, health tips, things along that nature that you've educated yourself on, you've grown your knowledge base, all these different things. So a podcast is a great way to get it out there. On top of that, you can bring people in, bring in experts in different fields, network, which is always a big thing that people talk about with growing a business, network your business in a way that you find somebody, whether they're in your town or in the neighboring town or on the other side of the globe. I've recorded with people on the other side of the globe, and it's a great way to network in that way. You're getting into their audience and growing your brand. First one and big one here with audio microphones, and this kind of goes with recording, and it's kind of the first arm of it, is your microphone. Now, you might be thinking, oh, I have a microphone. I have my Rode Go. That's a popular one that I talk about on this channel. And you might be thinking, can I just use that? Yes, technically you could, but I would say that getting a specific podcasting microphone is going to make all the difference with the audio quality. Audio and microphones, they have different patterns. And I don't claim to be a super knowledgeable person with microphones, but there's different audio patterns and how the audio gets picked up. And depending upon how your room, all the furniture in your room, how the sound bounces off in different areas, a podcasting microphone can be crucial. It can be very important for the quality of it. Audio quality is the biggest thing. And that's one of the things that I've always heard with people that have listened to podcasts that I've done or been on, is that the audio, if it sounds good, they're going to listen to more. So I would recommend a microphone over anything. There's two microphones that I've personally had. One is the Blue Yeti. That's not the one that's right in front of me in this, but I used the Blue Yeti for years, probably 6-7 years before I ended up buying the Shure microphone right here. Blue, in my opinion, is a recognizable company. They have a lot of great options out there. I have seen in the podcast with people that have used ones from Audio Technica, but the ones that I can personally say work well, Blue, and I'm going to include some in the description, some links in the description, and also the Shure. Yes, this is a more expensive microphone. It's a professional microphone. It's one that you're going to probably have for, I was going to say the rest of your life, but as long as you're podcasting. but it's one that's going to be a big investment. So check out Blue if you're in that starting department for your microphone and if it fits your budget. Now, podcasting platform and what kind of sparked this tutorial, this update with it, is that I've personally switched podcasting platforms. So where it's being distributed and how it's being uploaded, I switched it because of cost. For the longest time, I had the podcast, whether it's this one or my movie podcast that I do, on SoundCloud. Is SoundCloud bad? No, it allows you to do what you need to do. There are some things that I would improve upon it, but I will say that finding Spotify, I thought, is a reason enough to record this episode. On Spotify, you can record or even you can upload your podcast and even transfer over your podcast for free podcast hosting. So in my opinion, it makes this process much more affordable. I already talked about the benefits and why I think that podcasting can be huge for a health, wellness, fitness professional. But with Spotify having it up there as a free option, game changer in my opinion. With other options, I did mention Spotify right there. The analytics are a little weak in my opinion. Just being with Spotify for a few weeks and seeing the integrations and the analytics they have up there, I think it's pretty nice, pretty useful. Yes, you can go pay for analytics on a third-party site, but of course, you're paying for it. And that, in my opinion, is something that if you're starting a podcast, you don't want to be shelling out a lot of money at the beginning. The next and other podcasting platform that I tried for a split second is Libsyn. And I heard this one was great. I follow other podcasters on different platforms, and there would always be these podcasting questions like, who do you use for hosting and who do you think is the best? And this one kept coming up, Libsyn. And I signed up for it, and I'm not trying to poo-poo it and say that it's a bad platform. I'm sure it's great, and I'm sure that people will get a lot of use from it. But in my one experience, I thought that the cost was too high. I uploaded one episode for the KIPS podcast, and I already needed to upgrade. So I couldn't even finish uploading it because it was too large. If you're creating content, audio podcasts that you're editing, making sure that they sound good, oftentimes the audio file is going to be bigger. You could potentially compress it, but if you're just uploading the file and you're hopefully trying to create a good audio file, it's not going to work with Libsyn in a more economical way, in my opinion. But as I said, can it be great? I'm sure it is. Do other podcasters use it? I've seen a lot of people utilize it or say they use it. And so I'm sure that it's one of the top ones. So recording your podcast is an important part of it. How are you going to record your podcast to get it out there and hopefully capture your audience in a way that's not costing too much? Ones that I have tried personally and do utilize now, I've used Zoom, I've used Adobe Audition, and I've used Zencastr before. 3 different options, and some of them do have a price associated with them. I do say do because if you do have a free Zoom account, you could technically still take advantage of recording audio and video through there. And you could even set up a private room and record a podcast that way. I'm kind of thinking out of the box there. Is it the most ideal way? No, but you technically can. If you are using Zoom, what I will say to record a podcast, maybe you have a guest on, is to make sure you set up in your settings to record the audio separately so that your audio is separate from your guest. What that means is once you do, and I'm hoping you do edit it, you can edit those files separately so that you can raise the audio levels up separately and be able to have both tracks sounding solid. The free options, I did mention Zoom already, but if you do have a Mac, you could use potentially QuickTime. QuickTime is built into every Mac computer. If you go to your applications, you can find screen recording, audio recording, video recording options on your Mac. I'm sure that a Windows-based computer does have that option out there. I do not know what it is. I apologize for audience members out there. I didn't want to put something in that I just quickly searched on Google and said, oh, this looks like it's free, and all of a sudden it doesn't. Those 2 free options that I mentioned, I know personally can work for somebody out there. I mentioned before Adobe Audition. That is the form that the software that I personally use to record a podcast. It's what I'm recording my audio into right now for this tutorial. And it's what I utilize when I do record a podcast or edit a podcast. It's a part of the Adobe suite and it does cost money. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but that is the one that I personally utilize myself. Other ones that I've heard of, Anchor and Riverside.fm. I've seen them out there. They're out there a lot. And even Zencastr has upgraded their services. When I personally used Zencastr, it was good. It was solid. But we did have some technical issues here and there. I believe now they have video available that you can utilize with it. So they have definitely upgraded their software, but I just have not found a reason to go back to it. But those are all other options out there that you could potentially utilize to record your podcast. If you're editing a podcast now, and I hope you are, because if not, it might sound weird, or you're trying to do it on one take, like you're pressing record in Zoom or pressing record in QuickTime, and you're just trying to capture right off the bat. It can be a little difficult sometimes, or sometimes something comes up. Maybe the doorbell rings or an animal, it meows or barks, and now your audio is messed up and you need to edit it. So I, again, use Adobe Audition. If you are looking for ways to upgrade your audio free, there is going to be a link in the description, Adobe Podcast. What this is, it's Adobe's AI software for enhancing audio for free. Yes, there are limitations on the file size, but you can take your audio file and upload it to Adobe Podcast, and it takes a little bit of time, and you'll probably want to tweak the percentage level for how intense it is, but it will enhance the audio in a way that sometimes it'll sound like studio quality. If you are recording with a guest that's using AirPods or they're not even using a microphone, this is a great way, in my opinion, to really upgrade the sound of the podcast. If you're editing a podcast, what I will say is trimming the ends is one of the big things. If you are adding an intro, that's another big thing. There are ways that you want to make it sound more professional so that when someone press plays, they get a nice intro, it sounds good. So definitely look into editing your podcast. And that might be a cost depending upon how you and what you are currently using for editing. Now, promoting the podcast, last piece of the puzzle here. I use something called Headliner, and I don't use it all the time, but I use it a lot, especially if you follow KIPS on social media. You will see some clips that are made with Headliner. It's where I put an image, I put an audio file, a clipped audio file on top of it. Yes, you can put in text, you can put in a progress bar, all these different things, and I find it very useful for creating these. It makes it much easier. Could I do this technically in Adobe? Yes, I could, and maybe save a few bucks there. But I think the efficiency of Headliner makes it really nice, and especially for full episodes, how I can create a full episode and it can put the wave bar, all these different things on it. It makes it really nice for promoting it, that it puts it in a file, dimension, all these types of things that you can easily export from your phone or from your computer and then put it out on social media. So there will be a link for Headliner in the description as well. So let's wrap this up. As I threw up in the beginning, an image that has the steps to creating a podcast. You have your recording. So how are you recording your podcast? It's in order to capture the audio. After that, you edit it. You're editing your podcast, trimming the beginnings, adding your intro, making sure that you're enhancing audio, maybe using Adobe Podcast. After you edit, you got your files. Now you're going to your hosting. Are you using Spotify? You're using SoundCloud, Libsyn, whatever that might be. This is your way to get it and distribute it out to the masses and essentially make it into a podcast. Lastly, promote. How are you going to promote it in a way that new people can find you? You can get your audience growing, engaging with your content, all types of things. So those 4 pieces there are probably the 4 most crucial items, in my opinion, for starting a podcast. Let's wrap this up here. The one piece that I mentioned that I was going to come back to is, should you get the Adobe Creative Suite or an Adobe Creative account? I have the Adobe Creative Suite. It is costly, and it is one thing that if you're going to use it, I can find it very useful. I do know other professionals, fit pros, that do have an account and do pay for it on a monthly basis. But yes, it is expensive. It can run up up towards $50 per month, which adds up. But if you are editing, if you are doing audio, if you are making promotions, graphics, all these different things, it can make your life much easier. So I do put it out there with a caveat that it's great, yada, yada, but it is expensive. Okay. So I hope this tutorial has been useful for those out there thinking, should I start a podcast? Should I do a podcast? Or thinking, maybe it's for me. Really consider it. Consider it and hopefully use this tutorial to help you out. Again, there are links in the description for the things that I mentioned. I hope that you continue to grow your content, grow your business, and I will catch you in the next one.